the next big question I have is obviously you have such a good understanding of people's perceptions and the emotional processes that, go through our minds in general. And this might be a big question, but I'd love to just hear your, subjective opinion on that. So obviously, as we've started in the conversation, we're living in very turbulent times right now, and there's so many things that affect people's mentality in a very negative way. So what's your opinion? What's your overview on all of that? What do you think affects our society nowadays most negatively? What do you think is something that needs to be addressed right now? And I guess I'll be curious to hear whether you are rather positive or rather negative when it comes to the gradation that the society is developing right now.
Yeah. I think the biggest problems are probably like information consumption
Mm-hmm.
and social media.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's every day you wake up and you get blasted in the face with like a fire hose of information.
Mm-hmm.
And most people will not take the time to parse out what's real and what's not. And
Mm-hmm.
that alone is exhausting. Like I find it exhausting. I'll see a headline and I'll be like, what? And then I'll get into it and then I'll fact check some stuff. I'll be like, that's not true. What?
Mm-hmm.
And then other times I'm like, oh, this is true. Like, wow, that I didn't realize that was going on. And then there's just, so much deception, I think, from people. And then social media just creates like this comparative lifestyle. And I fell into that trap recently where it was like bemoaning to my friends. It was like, I should have just stayed in a corporate job. I'd have so much in retirement. I'm
Yeah.
tired. I don't like being a business owner. My wife's doing it. I was like, woe is me kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they were able to encourage me, which was really great. And they're like, dude, like, most people are miserable at their corporate jobs. So all of us go through these existential crises. But, you get on social media and it's like, I saw this meme. It was really funny. It was like Cillian Murphy, from Peaky Blinders, and
Yeah.
he looks old and like shocked like this.
Yeah.
And it's like me trying to be a good person while I know there's just tons of people out there making millions on
Yeah.
OnlyFans and selling drugs and, cheating the system and all of that. And I think with the comparison culture and like, this is the thing, like the definition of addiction basically is like things that you can't give up, like,
Mm.
and that you're constantly coming back to. And most people, that's social media, it can, and like porn addiction is a big one now. Like, again, I mentioned the whole OnlyFans thing, like
Mm-hmm.
everything on Instagram is like a bait and switch for most
Yeah.
guys. It's
Absolutely.
like, what
Yeah.
is going on? So,
Yeah.
it's like, I'm like, if this is a problem and you want to be happier, it's been funny. I've recommended this advice to a couple of my friends. I'm like, delete your social media and stop consuming so much news. And they did it. And they're like, dude, I feel so much better. I don't think I'm ever going back. And I'm like, great.
Yeah.
Like, there's your answer. But I always go back to, I was at this conference and this dude was just talking about, phones and parents. And he said, anything that you can't give up owns you.
Oh.
And I was just like, dude, that's real. Like, and
Yeah.
you think about that in life. You can't get social media, it owns you. Like you're the product, you're being owned by it. And it's contributing to things that are worse. If you can't give up the news, like, and you're growing more depressed and like literally I had to do, I told Emily, I was like, I can't keep reading the news. This is bad for me. She was like, yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to not do that for a while. And this comedian made this joke. I was watching a comedy special the other day, and he was like, I gave up watching the news. I know that sounds irresponsible. He goes, but if something really big happens, you're going to find out about it. He's like, when 9/11 happened, like, he was like,
Yeah.
everybody knew. He was like, you didn't have to be on the news to know
Yeah.
that 9/11 happened. And,
Yeah.
it's the same thing like last summer when Trump got shot before he was
Yeah.
like, I was literally on a lake. I was out on a jet ski having a time of my life at this family reunion thing. And I came back in and they were like, Trump got shot. And I
Yeah.
was like, what?
Yeah.
So like big world, you don't need somebody's going to tell you.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
but it might be really weird if you're the last person on earth to figure out what do you mean happened at 9/11? Why you come out of the mountains and
Yeah.
like, huh?
Yeah.
So,
So,
so that's, I mean, you have to think about things logically
mhm.
and responsibly. Otherwise, and like for me, you know, the 12 steps is a really great place for like a lot of people because you do these like fearless and moral inventories. Most people assume it's like for alcohol or drugs or
Mhm.
whatnot, but it can be hurts, hangups, anything.
Yeah.
And that steps process, and step number 4, you make this fearless and moral inventory, and you have to realize like you address everything from ideas to institutions to
Mhm.
whatnot, and like figure out how is this thing hurting you, or how did it hurt you, and then also at the same time, where have I been selfish, irresponsible, where has it affected my wallet? And so I just kind of do that and take an inventory of like things in life that are kind of destroying me. Now, I don't always do this great and fail at it often, but and like that, one of the big things that I'm working through right now is I was like, I work too much, I have too much on my plate, I'm saying yes to too many things because I'm a people pleaser.
Yeah.
How do I find that peace and that rest? And like right now I'm in this phase of discovery. It's going, where can I learn to let people down? Where can I learn to say no? Because
Yeah.
otherwise I'm not going to be the best version of myself for my friends and my family.
Hmm.
So that's all of life is a process, and you have to figure out like where your trial is at the moment and
Hmm.
the crucible that you're being tested in so that you can be forged through the fire.
Wow. Yeah. And I absolutely agree. And I think that's such an interesting and important topic for people to have in general because, obviously we see how all of these processes you've mentioned affect, the younger generation and subsequently how this affects all of us at the same time.
Oh, it's affecting everybody, even the
Yeah,
boomers, man.
absolutely. Yeah. But they knew it. They were expecting
Yeah. They're like, did
it.
you see that Sasquatch is at Whole
Yeah.
Foods? You're like, that's not real. They're
Yeah.
like, but it's real. And I'm like, oh no.
How come it's not true? It's coming from this website, see a real Sasquatch dot, want your friend, whatever. Yeah. It's insane. Insane.
Yeah,
Uh,
Ronnie Chang does a good bit on
yeah.
that for a comedy special. It's awesome.
I'll definitely check that out. I love those. I love those.